origin story actually has a Taiwanese origin story, which is that I was speaking with the CEO of Qualcomm, Cristiano Amon, and I was trying to get some stories out of him for a profile. This was during COVID-19, and he was talking about being held in 14-day quarantine in Taipei, so he couldn't get to the fabs to oversee the Qualcomm chip production. And I remember being confused by the story because I was saying, wait, but you're a fabless company. You don't actually do the production, so why do you need to go to the fabs? And his answer mystified me. He said, because we follow the Apple model. And I wasn't just a tech reporter, I was the Apple reporter for the Financial Times. And I realized in that moment, I didn't know what the Apple model was, right? So we're all familiar with the fact that the iPhone and every other Apple product was made in China, right? It says so either on the box, if not the back of the phone. But I didn't understand, I guess, the implications of that. And so it was a short conversation. We didn't have much to say about that, but it sort of led me on the path to spending more time looking up how actually Apple makes its products. Among the first things I began to understand was that we use the term outsourcing, I think, pretty loosely. I don't think Apple does outsource its products. There's not a better word for it, so I will continue to use the term. But in effect, the sort of broad narrative that came to be was that when Apple was shifting production to China in the early 2000s, it's not that they were moving there because China had the tech competence to build Apple products. It's that it had abundant, ubiquitous, flexible labor and these emerging ecosystems where you could build factories basically sort of custom built just for your own uses. Apple sort of had a plan to build the tech competence within China. And I had never heard anything about the narrative of Apple engineers from California flying over literally by the plane load to teach dozens and then later hundreds of factories to get up to Apple quality levels and then to streamline that production so that as they scaled with something like the iPhone, they maintained that quality even as they went to world-leading quantity levels. And of course, they were doing so at razor-thin margins where sometimes suppliers were actually losing money just to be involved in the Apple production supply chain. And once you begin to piece those things together, and to be fair, this took me months and months to really understand the implications, the narrative becomes quite wild. That Apple's influence on China is akin to something like a nation-building effort for the most important thing to Xi Jinping, which is China's manufacturing dominance and power as nature.